Hello there, world of tankers. I'm Blitz, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Chimera. Now, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that. Chimera, Chimera. A lot of people say it's different, so let me know in the comments down below. But in this video, just like all of my other tank reviews, I'm going to be telling you about the statistics of the vehicle, a little bit about the armor profile, my personal opinion, and of course, whether or not it is worth the 12,500 gold price tag this tank was given when it came into the stores this morning. Now, of course, if you do like this type of video and you want to see more reviews like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. It really does help out the channel. We are so close to 10,000 subscribers, so make sure to do that. But other than that, guys, I'm going to get straight into it. Starting off with the statistics, this tank has a base damage per minute of 2,023, and while that's not great, in fact it's one of the worst values for a tier 8 medium, the tank does 440 average damage a shot. In fact, that is the highest average damage for a tier 8 medium in the class. The 34.3 pales in comparison with 400 average damage compared to this tank. In fact, the premium ammo on this tank still does 400 average damage. So it is a very nasty tank, and this thing hits harder than most of the heavy tanks at tier 8. So that's why you really do not want to be caught out in the sights of this vehicle. As well, comes with 218mm of standard pen, which is very nice. It's actually one of the better values for a tier 8 medium. The premium, however, is 252, which is not spectacular. It's only going up 32 more than the standard pen, which means that, honestly, I find myself using the AP a lot more than you ever need to use the premium, just because you're really only going to need the premium if you're going up against super heavies like an E75, a Tiger II, and you just don't have enough to get through its upper plate. That's when you do need to load the premium ammo. High explosive on this tank, 64mm of pen, very nice amount. You're going to be able to get through the sides of some of the lightly armored mediums, and as well the rear of pretty much all the tanks in the game except for German super heavies. It does 530 average damage with the high explosive, which is also a very nice amount. Now, you might expect a tank with such a large caliber gun to have a very slow shell velocity, but in fact it does go about 1,000 meters a second, which is not too bad either. That's right in the middle for medium tanks. So it's not bad on the gun statistics at all. And looking at the base aiming time of 2.08 seconds and the dispersion value of 0.326, those are also about smack in the middle of all the medium tanks in the tier. And while that wouldn't be great for a tank like the Mod 1 because the Mod 1 only does 270 damage, this tank does 440, so I honestly think that the aiming time and dispersion are completely workable and fine. I rarely find myself missing shots. It's pretty easy to aim them in, you just gotta spend a little bit longer, but if you take your time and spend a little bit longer aiming in your shells, you're hitting a lot harder than you would in a tank like an RU or a T-54 or any other vehicle, because you don't have to spend as much time in those tanks. This one, you want to make that shot connect, so you always want to make sure that you're taking your time with this tank. Dispersion factors while moving, rotating the turret are not very good at that, but after the shot are actually very nice at 3.50. That's a very nice thing because it means that if you're sitting still sniping across the map, which isn't actually that bad in this tank, there's a consumable that takes away 50% of the aiming time and 50% of the dispersion, which means that if you're across the map and you see somebody there, you can tap that little consumable and your aiming time literally drops in half. Everything on the tank is perfect and you can shoot people anywhere on the map pretty much easily as long as you have line of sight on them. I would definitely suggest to put that consumable on it. Tank comes with 10 degrees of gun depression as well, very nice. You're going to be able to work any ridge lines, pretty much anywhere you need to go on the map. You're going to work easily, and other medium tanks are really going to struggle to hit your turret. It is sort of shaped like a Conway, so it's a very funky little box turret, and penning it can actually be quite troll, as you'll see in the armor profile. However, gun elevation is a bit of an issue on this tank. 15 degrees is not super good, and I do find myself struggling a little bit when I'm on certain maps, especially like Castilla, when you might have to aim up on people that are on the hills. It's definitely a little bit of a struggle when you don't have the best gun elevation, so that can hurt you in certain maps, but really I wouldn't worry too much about that. The tank does weigh 56.2 tons, which makes it in fact the heaviest tier 8 medium. Now, what do you get with 56 tons? A 50 km/h top speed, which is also very good, judging that the tank is so heavy. That means that you can ram any other medium in the game, and you're going to take more off than they're going to take off of you. So you're really going to be able to ram tanks like a T-49 and take off 300, 400, 500 hit points if you're going at full speed. And you can imagine that is going to hurt a lot if you're also getting an HE in the side of a light tank where you're taking off another 530. You can almost completely wipe out an entire light tank's hit point pool if they just manage to tap you by accident. The effective power-to-weight ratio on this tank as well is very nice at 17.61. It's not spectacular, but on medium terrain it's actually 16.01, which barely drops at all, which means that when you're on dunes, when you're going up any ridge lines, anything like that, it's actually going to be very nice on both of those values. Traverse speed, 36.45, is the worst out of every single medium in the game, which makes sense because it is a very heavy tank at that. So when you are running this vehicle and you're trying to turn, it's not the biggest problem because the turret traverse is still 31.59. You're still going to be turning it at around 70 degrees a second combined, which means nobody's going to get the sides of you easily. But you do have to keep that in mind if there is a vehicle like a 49 near you. Make sure they cannot get your butt because it will really hurt. Looking at the armor profile of this tank, it actually does have its fair share of bouncy areas. Now it does look very weak on paper, but you look at that upper plate and it's about 186 effective. And if you look at most tier 8 medium penetration values, that means that they're not going to be able to penetrate you with standard ammunition, or at least the ones that have 175. So vehicles like the T-34-3, the T-54 Mod 1, even the Type 59 is really going to struggle to penetrate that upper plate. And if you angle this tank, you can see it becomes even thicker, 198 millimeters thick. That is a very troll upper plate to shoot at. Now, of course, it does have a very weak lower plate at that, but 147 millimeters thick is still fairly confidently going to bounce rounds from vehicles like a T-49, which you might want to be worried about in some other mediums. This tank you really don't have to worry about. As well, while this little red bar looks like it's just a very small part of armor, it's actually a pretty long piece, as you can see. So that red bar is an auto ricochet on every single AP or APCR round. It's around 220 thick, 300 in the middle. You're not going to penetrate that with any standard ammunition unless, of course, you are shooting heat. Then it's going to go right through because it has 85 degrees of penetration compared to AP has 72, I think it is. So it's definitely an advantage with heat rounds if you're trying to pen this tank, but you can see it's actually very tough to penetrate the upper armor of this vehicle. It's pretty much all auto ricochets from standard ammunition. As well, the edges of the turrets, all auto ricochets. The turret isn't strong itself, as you can see, but it is very troll to pen that turret if you start wiggling it back and forth. And while that turret, again, seems very easy to penetrate, it's sitting at around 200 millimeters effective all round, which means that, again, if you're running a vehicle like a 54, any Type 59, you're really going to struggle to penetrate that turret because its effective armor is very thick. Now, it does not have a thick gun mantlet. That is the only issue I have with this vehicle, is the gun mantlet still is only about 205 millimeters thick, so it's about the same as the normal hull. So if you have more than 200 millimeters of pen, you'll easily go through this tank. If you have less, just load premium and literally shoot anywhere on the turret. As long as you don't hit the little edge, you're going to be completely fine on penning this tank. And as well, very weak cupola right on the top. Now the side armor of this vehicle isn't too thick. If you do manage to hit this little plate here, you might get the occasional ricochet. But overall, 88 millimeters thick, even RHMs with calibrated are easily going to be getting high explosive into the side of this vehicle. And getting started on the rear, yeah, that's a very big booty, and 51 millimeters thick. Yeah, you can pretty much get any high explosive around the pen with a 120 or higher. So it doesn't have the greatest armor, but it's definitely a very troll tank. I've had a fair share of ricochets in the turret, the upper plate. If you manage to wiggle it, especially because you've got 10 degrees of gun depression, you can see putting that gun depression into effect, that upper plate is around 250 millimeters thick. You put it to a little bit of an angle, that upper plate 260, that turret still very troll to penetrate, of course because it is just this big box, it's not really going to bounce much. But it's actually a very troll tank at that. Some tips and tricks for this vehicle. The first one, don't sit out in the open. This tank has the highest alpha with standard ammo out of every other tank in the entire game in the medium class, which means that if you're running this vehicle, people are 100% going to target you. They want to take you out first. So don't sit out in the open and think, oh, I'll be fine. You will be shot and you will be killed. Second of all, if you're in a hull down position, you're using your 10 degrees of gun depression. While I did say the hull armor is good, your turret is that big box and it stays all around the same 200mm. And while 200 is decent against vehicles like a Mod 1, they've got around 250mm of premium penetration, which means they're easily going to clear right through your turret armor. So when you're running this tank in a gun depression position, pretty much think of worst case scenario that they're always going to pen you when you're pulling out. So what you want to do is maximize your mobility, pull up really quickly, snap them in the turret or snap them wherever you can with your gun depression, and then back up. Don't sit out in the open and aim for your whole 2-second aiming time and then back down. Just really quickly snap it, because that's a way more effective just strategy to get your damage out. Especially if you've got that aiming time consumable, I would definitely suggest to put that on. You can click that before you go over the ridge, that way your tank doesn't really disperse in the first place, it's eagle-eye accurate. Just pull out, snap the shell, and back up. That's the #1 tip I would definitely say for this tank. On to the final question, is this tank worth the 12,500 gold price tag? I still don't feel it is. While it is a fun medium tank, and if you buy it, I definitely think that you'll enjoy it, because that 440 alpha is really, really fun, and demolishes pretty much anything you hit with one shell. I just don't feel for 12,500 gold that it is worth the price. And I don't know why Wargaming didn't make a 10,000 gold offer as well, where it didn't have the equipment on it, didn't have the avatar and the camo. I would say maybe get it if it was 10,000 gold, but since it's 12,500, I still think it's a little bit too expensive when there's vehicles like the Mod 1 that you can get for $20 that come into the store. And the Mod 1 is a really, really solid tank as well. And this one, while it is solid, I think that if you get pushed on, it's very easy to be taken out. It can be frustrating. So there are many, many things about this tank that I like, but 12,500 gold is not a price tag that I do like about it. This is going to be the end of this review. I hope you guys did enjoy it. You learned a couple things about the Chimera or the Chimera. Still let me know in the comments down below how to pronounce it. But I hope you guys did enjoy this. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. If you learned something new, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But other than that, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Stay happy, stay healthy out there, and I'll see you in the next one.